WWT presents Experts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of WWT Experts. I'm your host, Matthew Coble, as usual. And today we have with us two experts from Worldwide Technology in this episode of our four-part series about healthcare and how the industry approaches cloud, digital transformation, security, and today's topic, artificial intelligence. With me today are Dr. Sanaz and Drew Pikey. Dr. Cordes started her career as a physician and is now a chief healthcare advisor at Worldwide Technology. And her role with us, she consults with healthcare and life sciences organizations, from mature organizations through to tech startups, on all the technologies that are driving the healthcare industry. Drew Pikey is a senior management consultant with WWT and consults with our clients on data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and topics like that. He's worked across several industries, including healthcare, and he always enjoys solving complex business problems for our clients. Delighted to have you both here today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, great to be here. Thanks.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, let's jump in. So, Dr. Cordes, WWT works with hundreds of clients across many industries, and everyone is talking about artificial intelligence, particularly Gen AI. What is the current landscape in healthcare as it relates to adopting and driving AI forward?
Yeah, I think we're at a really interesting time around adoption because physicians traditionally have been reluctant to adopt AI.
Or really any technology.
Well, that is true. Cultural adoption is always the first step. But what we've seen, the most recent data I've looked at is, 40% of physicians, according to the AMA survey, are now using AI, which is quite different than 10%, which is what we saw before the pandemic. So I think there's definitely been a shift towards that. And I think, 90% or 80% of them said that they are very excited that it will help with diagnoses, which is quite a bit of a shift as well from where we were even like 5 years ago. So on the adoption front, good things are happening. We still have a lot of work to do to keep that moving in the right direction. But I think when we look at what's driving it in general in the industry, it's really kind of tied back to the basic business outcomes, right? We want better operational efficiency. Need to drive financial health in these organizations. Automation and AI can definitely help them do that. We're always focused on the patient outcomes, care outcomes, quality of care, and the patient experience. So how can, using AI to do things like, virtual care assistants and making it easier to get your prior authorization, or making sure that you get all the proactive care you need, and not just based on a human culling through your chart. Those things will definitely drive that. And then I think it's also the year of the clinician experience. I really do for 2024, because most of these tools, they're not front and center and have a, glamorous user interface for the world to use or the patient to use, but they're sitting on the back end for staff and clinicians to do, to take some of this burdensome, repetitive work off their plate and augment their ability to do things that, they couldn't do without something like artificial intelligence.
Yeah. All right. What are we seeing as some of the challenges for adoption of AI to meet the needs in healthcare?
Yeah, like we talked about, adoption it's getting better, right? But it's going to continue to be something that we're going to have to focus on, getting stakeholder involvement, getting rid of that black box sort of view that physicians have of the technology, et cetera, et cetera. But I think what's interesting to me anyway, as I have conversations with these clients, is that the pendulum has really swung pretty far, where before historical blockers of technology, particularly AI, folks like clinicians and nurses are now clamoring for it. It's been democratized. Everyone's using ChatGPT at home, right? And so they're starting to use it for work, whether IT is ready for it or not. And so the challenge I've literally heard CIOs say is, we got to get our arms around this. There's too much shadow IT that we can't put security controls around. There needs to be prioritization, because I've got all these different lines of business coming and saying, well, we want Gen AI to do this for cardiology and this and that. And those are all valid use cases, but how do we prioritize? How do we make sure that we're rolling them out in a meaningful and intentional way? And then just the centralization of it. To date, with any technology we've introduced into healthcare, it starts out decentralized, and sometimes it stays that way, right? Refill automation, or things that can be specific, but something this big that's likely to scale this fast, really they need to kind of buckle down and figure out how are we going to kind of centralize and standardize this moving forward.
Well, so everyone's excited about the many future possibilities of AI, but it takes really real-world scenarios, discipline, data both for predictive AI as well as generative AI. And all that's got to kind of come together for all this to really work, right? So what are healthcare organizations actually doing today with all of these things?
Yeah, and traditional AI's classification capabilities, prediction capabilities have certainly been prevalent for a number of years, especially in the terms of medical diagnosis workflows. And I'm certainly excited to see that trend continue and to benefit that trend through the use of generative AI. I really see generative AI as a catalyst, really bringing these AI-driven or ML-driven workflows to the hands of everyday business users and clinicians through the aspect of natural language, right? Generative AI brings this really powerful interface of natural language to interact with these models and interact with the information derived from these models in a really easy to use setting, right? Having a prompt, having a query to access that information without needing to know model languages and coding is really powerful. And I certainly see that helping accelerate efficacy and efficiency in medical diagnosis and really democratize care to a wider subset of people, making sure the right people have the right care at the right time through the use of generative AI.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that there are, a lot of possible use cases out there for healthcare, and we've talked about adoption a little bit, but there is the need for that adoption and education. So if we're talking with some healthcare leaders today, which I'm sure we are, what advice would you give them and other practitioners to make sure that they integrate AI into their healthcare system and practices really well? What should they be doing?
I will say that regardless of the technology, and I've been doing this for a couple of decades now, integration into workflow is key. I can't emphasize that enough, because sometimes, we'll meet startups with these brilliant solutions, brilliant technologies that really could transform healthcare, but physicians aren't going to use it because you're asking them to open another user interface. They spend 90% of their life in the EHR, right? Mm-hmm. And so that has really been important. So I'd say as these models are being built, figuring out how to implement them into both the nurse's workflow and the physician's workflow, which inevitably lives inside the EHR, is going to be key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really important to build trust with your users, with your clinicians, with your consumers of AI. The worst thing that you can do is build AI solutions that don't promote efficient or effective outcomes, that promote biased data, that promote incorrect data. So deriving the right data and architectures within those workflows to ultimately drive the outcomes that you seek through AI are really important. The consistent and thoughtful curation of your data and the use of that within your AI workflows through concepts such as RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, are up and coming trends that are really going to be prevalent and important in the coming development of AI. Being able to integrate your enterprise data into those AI workflows effectively to promote controls and guardrails around the input data, who can access that data, when they can access that, and what that model output looks like, really in a repeatable and explainable way. So those kinds of controls and architectures will really be prevalent moving forward, and need to be thoughtfully designed and architected within those AI workflows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes me think about something we say at WWT: the data's got to be designed to deliver those business outcomes that you're looking for.
Good AI is predicated on good data.
Absolutely. So that was talking about some of that sort of operational stuff, but there's also work to do around strategy and planning and so forth as well. So what should healthcare organizations be thinking about in terms of kind of the future of AI and the organizations from that standpoint?
Well, I really see AI as kind of shifting the mindset from a project to a product mindset, right? You have to really think about not just the beginning and the end of a project with a defined investment and an expected return on that investment, but really shifting to thinking of AI as a foundational product that'll enable not just the workflows that you want to enable now, but future workflows, right? You have to think through thoughtfully the people, processes, and technology that manage the life cycle behind that product. From a people standpoint, MLOps roles will play a key aspect in the development and ecosystem of ML. Think about software having DevOps. ML will certainly have ML Ops, really playing that interconnected role behind software development, behind the UI, UX, and ultimately the data architecture and curation of that data in between. From a process standpoint, data governance, responsible and ethical use of AI, security controls, and explainability controls will be very important in maintaining and building the foundations for both extensible and successful AI solutions. And lastly, from a technology standpoint, like I mentioned, the RAG architecture is very important, but that merged with thoughtful and effective prompt engineering within those workflows, and also a thoughtful design to the user experience and the UI UX of those workflows will enable, development and adoption of those AI workflows within business and healthcare processes.
Yeah, I'll add to that, kind of taking a step back. When we get involved in these types of conversations, typically the first thing we'll hear is the outcome, right? That this is what we're trying to achieve. We want to create, proactive care plans. But we're stuck because we didn't keep our data up to date, right? We don't have those controls in place. We don't have, stakeholders, steering committees. So before I call Drew to come in and, start talking about building, these things, we really have to bring in the team to help with that. And, a data governance team that can help them just the basic things of like, these are the pieces of data we need to access, and this is how we're going to clean it, use it, consume it, maintain it moving forward. So that's kind of like the starting point. And then, at a higher level, I would say there has been technology over the years that have been introduced that to some extent it can be in a vacuum, how it's, deployed and updated and maybe even built. And it can perform, and it has performed in healthcare. But that, I think, that way of thinking has to stop as we kind of embark on all these new AI use cases, where there really needs to be an ongoing, sort of, to Drew's point, like iterative partnership between the end users and who's deploying these models. And the end users typically, being the clinicians, because I think things can spiral, the wrong direction more readily with AI solutions than, previous digital solutions.
Yeah. Well, with this topic area and probably lots of other technologies out there, organizations, probably bringing in consultants like Worldwide Technology to help with things. So as clients are thinking about getting help with their AI initiatives, how should they engage? What should they do?
I'll let you go first on that.
Sure. Well, we at Worldwide really take the outcomes first approach. Yeah. Thinking through what outcomes our customers want to see through AI with their consumers, with their users, and helping right-size a strategy and plan to really reach those outcomes, starting with the business use cases. We want to make sure that we prioritize the highest value use cases that have a manageable level of complexity for development and adoption across the organization, and build an extensible and sustainable roadmap, not only to hit the high value targets and the low-hanging fruit, but to ultimately reach the long-term outcomes that our customers seek to drive through AI solutions. Oftentimes we see there's a bit of a gap in the workforce from a skill set standpoint, from a resource standpoint on developing some of the technical concepts behind AI, whether it's ML Ops, whether it's the RAG architectures, and we can certainly help with that. We have our data science and consulting team that can help meet our customers where they're at and drive some of those solutions to fruition. And then ultimately, Worldwide has such a rich history of technology and OEM partnerships. And between those and our AI Proving Ground in the Advanced Technology Center, we can really help drive some of the technology decisions that our customers have to make in order to really balance the concept of return on investment with total cost of ownership, and really bridge the gap between IT departments and lines of business stakeholders, ultimately driving successful and adoptable solutions for our customers. And Worldwide's been doing this. We have actually embarked on an initiative and investment internally with Worldwide to identify over 70 use cases across lines of business and really prioritize some key high value ones that we've now put into production and are being used by our enterprise stakeholders across the business today.
Yeah, it's for our own business purposes, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah. Any comments?
The only thing I would add is at Worldwide, it's really it takes a village approach.
Yep.
So I think what's nice when we work with customers, especially those that we are already involved with on some level in infrastructure, that we can bring in a team that says, wow, you're going to need to do this very high compute, high data heavy use case. Here are all the things behind the scenes that maybe aren't as glamorous than just focusing on, I'm going to create this, generative AI model that need to tighten up, right? From cloud to storage to, all that. And then also just being able to bring our industry folks together, because sometimes what I end up doing is sort of just being that almost like a translator, right?
Yeah.
Where, the clinicians may not feel heard, but this is what's really important, and, by the technologists and vice versa. And, we have an opportunity to come in and really sort of make sure that's a smoother path.
Yeah. I imagine you're playing that sort of emissary diplomat role a lot.
A lot.
In the work that you're doing. And I'm sure you're doing a lot of great work with clients too. And, I love that we've got all those pieces that we can bring together as a company, to deliver on AI and lots of other things for our clients in healthcare and within lots of other verticals out there. So, hey, well, thank you both for joining us today. Great to have you.
Yeah, it's great being here. Thank you.
Great being here as well. Thank you so much.
Sure. Hey, and thank you for joining us as well. As I mentioned at the top of the show, one of 4 great episodes we have around healthcare and how they're being affected by how that industry is being affected by technologies. Others on cloud, digital transformation, and security are also out there on WWT.com. In fact, we've got a ton of events out there on the platform at WWT.com/events. That's where you'll find those. You can schedule stuff out in the future. A great back catalog as well that you can watch on demand at any time. Thanks so much for joining today, and we'll see you next time.